The Book of Adi Shakti. Very few texts were written by Shri Mataji during her life and ministry. She was concerned that the actual living experience of self-realization was most important and not to be obscured by the clouds of mental reasoning. This is the earliest of her known writings. In original drafts she writes, "I have myself given self-realization to several people, and it seems, somewhat paradoxically, at first glance, to be a complex dissertation on the nature of creation and the structure and powers of spiritual hierarchies involved in that process." Reading, however, we enter into the realm of silence and meditation, and the words bathe and illuminate the deep foundations of what was to follow gloriously over the next 40+ years. Her later book, Metamodern Era, can be seen as a manifesto, and perhaps she felt that it fulfilled her initial presentation, because Holy Scriptures, the advent of self-realization to mankind. She has given thousands of conferences all over the world to spread this experience of inner transformation, this with full dedication and constant attention to the seekers of truth. To meet her was always a transforming experience full of joy, love and innocence. She took her samadhi on the 23rd of February 2011. On the 2nd of December 1979, Advent Sunday in the Christian calendar, a full moon day, Her Holiness Shri Mataji Nirmala Devi famously declared herself, for the first time, "I am the one who has to save humanity." Those who were there remember the solemnity and silence that day, seeing dust particles dancing in the stillness of the shafts of sunlight coming through the window of Dollis Hill Ashram. And it was on that day that Mother gave out the first copies of the Advent, which had been printed in India and shipped in. The Advent was the first major work published about Sahaja Yoga. What is not widely known is that it began life as an introduction to a book that Shri Mataji was writing at the time, and much of its contents were inspired by that very book. One of the original 7 Western yogis recalls Mother getting up at 3 a.m. some mornings and telling me she was writing her book, but no instructions about future publishing. Dear reader, this is the book that Shri Mataji wrote, for which instructions to publish were never finally given. Perhaps as you read on you will understand why this was. The book is more a support for the meditation of those who have already recognized her advent than an instructive text to absorb new information. According to the original list of chapters, the manuscript is not finished. Mother said at the time that those unwritten chapters were not a priority as she had more important things to do. Later on, Shri Mataji was to expound further her teachings in her book, Metamodern Era. There are also indications in the text that Mother may have been planning to write in greater detail about individual chakras. However, the work can hardly be called incomplete in its descriptions and breathtaking scope. The first chapters are the history of the creation by the One who was there at its beginning. While Sri Krishna revealed to Arjuna the subtle nature of the cosmos in the vision of the Virata, no other incarnation has ever written such an explanatory work. Are we ready to comprehend the majesty of this message? Nobody on earth could have written this book. Not a pope, not a lama, not a mufti, no poet, no physicist, no doctor. It is intuitive and elusive, and it can only be properly appreciated with a combination of buddhi, intellect, and bhakti, devotion. At one point in her book she says, "The knowledge that is expressed in this book is subjective in nature, hence it must be understood from the subjective angle." We take this to mean that it can only be absorbed when in touch with the ultimate subject who is the self, that is, in a state of meditation and grace. And it could put us there if our heart is open. This is not information that has been learned but innate knowledge coming from direct experience. How we love our eternal mother. Shri Mataji dictated her words onto cassette tapes in the late 70s and early 80s, and it was typed up onto an early computer. There was no Microsoft Word in those days. It later was saved onto floppy disks and was more or less completed in its latest known form by 1982. TypeScript. Copies of the stunning chapter on Muladhara circulated in the collectivity quite early on, but yogis who saw it were made aware that its publication was not officially authorized. Eventually, 2 main manuscripts, and fragments of others, remained in existence on the hard drives of a very few old yogis. On a few occasions the request was put to Shri Mataji for the work to be published, but final permission was never given. It was apparent to some who were close to the project at the time of writing that Mother was concerned that people might try to start another religion using her book. The original manuscripts rest in the Museum of the Cabela Castle in Italy and in Pratishan, India. After much consideration, NIPC and the Central Committee have decided that it would be preferable now to publish a thoroughly edited and researched edition for the benefit of serious seekers who have achieved some level of realization and understanding, and in a format befitting the beauty and gravity of the content. The original hand-corrected drafts and, in some cases, handwritten pages have been fully consulted, and where there were omissions in some text, these have been filled from these drafts and other manuscripts. As far as can be known, this is, then, a definitive version of Mother's final text as intended by her. During the course of working with the presentation of this magnificent text, we could feel so powerfully the cool wind of love and benediction flowing into our lives, and like so many yogis we have experienced wonderful coincidences and blessings, which many have called miracles.